That's right, we're talking about the Fear the Walking Dead finale. Things Bad Begun today on The Tone Show. This episode basically put things into motion, and the title says it all, Things Bad Begun. And they spelled this begun, B-E-G-U-N, which basically means that something in the past that still has an effect today, and that's what the begun they're using here. And it's because this episode basically gets the ball rolling to the finale, which is Sleigh Ride. And this episode opened with a really cool, interesting opening shot, which was of that shopping cart just doing this, and then top of the shopping cart, you saw the dead heads literally being put in, like the heads of the dead. And then we find out that it's Nick collecting heads of the infected so they can make their favorite cocktail by chopping open a zombie's head and taking out that part of the cerebellum basically that gives them that jolt. That's that high that Nick has been chasing. And he doesn't know, unbeknownst to him, he's basically collecting these zombie brain parts to actually fuel and use it as a booster shot, basically, as a turbo drink, a Red Bull for the gang that's about to attack the dam, which is the Proctors. So Nick, unbeknownst to him, is really helping the Proctors at this point. Somebody who was unlike himself was Troy, because Troy's the one who listens in and finds out that there's going to be an attack on the dam. And he's the one who pulls Nick from his zombie hunting project, right? So that was very unlike Troy to think about others first and to pull Nick and say, hey, your mother's in danger, let's go to the dam. And when Troy arrives and he tells everybody about the news that the Proctors are coming. And it was really cool because John Proctor, the head of the Proctors that we're going to meet, his character is basically one of the baddies that we've been missing. I feel like Fear the Walking Dead and The Walking Dead are really separated by not just the cast, the ensemble that they've gathered at this point. Like the villains in The Walking Dead has been really what defined it. The Governor, Negan, like these are two villains that they're as good as Rick and their counterparts. And I thought this John Proctor guy, what we about to see, I think he's a really interesting villain. And I definitely thought that he definitely brought different gravitas to the episode. So Troy brings it to the dam. He tells them, hey, the Proctors are coming. You guys basically need to prepare. And I thought that was very unlike Troy to do that. But we also saw that he was inkling to talk to Madison, and he wanted to get something out with Madison. And then we find out when he talks to Madison, do you forgive me? So at the end of it all, Troy was thinking about Madison, and he was thinking about forgiveness. And he was also thinking about, at the end of the day, he said, I really miss this. And he always had something for Madison, for that mother figure, and he wanted his mother to tell him, hey, it's okay, you can come on home. It's like I said before, Nick is the only person who scared Troy. Like, Troy's a psychopath. And he said it himself, I felt fear. I felt fear for the first time. And I said it in that episode before this, I told you that Nick actually scared Troy. And that's basically the first time that's ever happened. Because Nick is basically fearless in his addiction. And that's one of the things that makes him such a good survivor on this show. So Troy went to Madison. He tells her, hey, I just want you to forgive me. You know, whatever was done, basically. And if we go back a little bit, we saw that conversation that Madison had with Strand. Everybody was being their potent selves on this episode. And Madison basically said to Strand, hey, I don't have my children. At this point, she was lost. She didn't have a compass because her children, as we've seen in this episode and throughout the season and throughout the whole show, were center her. She basically does all these things that are unbelievably, someone could say, cruel or evil. Because she's doing it for survival. It became all about Travis's sacrifice. We have to keep the farm because the farm is important because Travis died for the farm. So that's why she had to hold on to the farm. And she was also doing it for her family. And when she mentioned that, you know, I really miss Christmas dinner, she was basically saying she misses that home for her family. She misses a place for them to reunite. Now that her kids were gone, Madison was basically lost at that moment. And she was explaining this to Strand. Now, Strand was being typical Strand. He was at home. He was scheming. He was looking out and saying, hey, look at this dam and everything out there. There's so many possibilities. And possibilities for himself, as always. That's what Strand was thinking. So when we saw that Strand was telling her, hey, you have to see the possibilities and the things that we can build here. He was basically being typical Strand, thinking about himself, thinking about power, thinking about reaching. And Madison at that point, she was lost because her motivation are her children. And she didn't have that motivation at that point. That's why that was an interesting conversation between them, because basically you saw where the characters were at that moment. And Daniel, he's still at this point, he's lost Ophelia, and he still hasn't come to terms with it, honestly. It's been only a couple episodes, right? Or an episode. And he's switched from grief. He kind of put his grief on hold, and he's moved into detective mode. Ophelia died. Whose fault is it? Let's find out. And that's what Daniel was up to in this episode. And I thought when he told Nick, hey, come on in and sit down with me, that wasn't like a fatherly, hey, let's sit down and chat. That's more the interrogator. Daniel in his old position telling him, let's sit down for an interrogation. And this episode, like I said, was very telling of the characters, very concentrated, because Daniel, he basically fell back to what he knew, which was being an interrogator, being a torturer. And this being Madison's son, he still had that in the back of his mind. Hey, I'm not going to hurt this kid outright. I'm going to basically scare him. You saw when he took his jacket off, he put it around the chair. That was all a tactic to show him, hey, things are getting serious here. You better tell me the truth. But we saw that at that point that Nick is being who he is. Nick, at the end of the day, is fearless. And he recognized the danger. He said that you're a military guy. You were an interrogator. He knows who he's dealing with. And he still bullshitted him. You saw that. He looked him in the eye and he bullshitted him. And he said, you know, it was Jake. It was Jake who did it. Knowing well that it was Troy. And it's because Nick and Troy, like I've said, they share this affinity. They share this brotherhood. And you saw Troy said that to Madison in the same episode, that Nick is my only friend. He's like a brother to me. And I said that before, guys. You see, the tone show be on right. The tone show be on fire when it comes to his criticisms and his reviewing. Because tone show told you these two saw each other as a mirror reflection of each other. They're both sick in their own way, and they're both fearless in their own way. And by Troy admitting to Madison that Nick scared him, I think he finally saw someone he can actually bounce and respect, and he considers him a brother. You saw that Nick was not going to give up Troy to Daniel. He even sold him on Jake doing it. And I think Nick kind of showed his hand and he kind of gave himself away when he was walking out the room and he said to Daniel, "I'm sorry." That "I'm sorry." When we saw the face of Daniel, like, it registered, like, wait a second, there's some bullshit here, Hito. And we definitely saw it right there. So I think that "I'm sorry" is what gave Nick away in this episode. Now, a couple of events happened after this that were really like, whoa, this could have been the finale easily. And it's interesting because you saw that Nick, not Nick, you saw that Strand and Madison had that conversation, and she basically told them, you have to kill, like that. It's only a matter of time. And when you do, it's not going to be easy, but the next one is easier. And then later on, we didn't think this was going to happen, but it was actually Strand shooting Daniel. And Daniel got shot in the mouth. That went right through here. And I thought Daniel was dead at that point. But then when he turned around, we saw it was in his mouth. And I was like, wow, Daniel survived. I thought Strand killed him at that point. And you saw that he didn't want to kill him. You saw that Daniel recognized that Strand's a con man. You're not a killer. And he approached him to knock the gun out of his hand. And they had that struggle with the gun like this. And when he got shot in the mouth, you saw that in Victor's face. It was fear. It was regret right away, like this isn't right. And when he pointed the gun at Lola, you saw that he wasn't ready to do it. And he basically said, get out of here. And later on, he could have easily told Proctor John, hey, these two are at large, the Water Queen and Daniel, you need to kill them. No, he said they got away. So he lied there. So even at that point, later on, you see that a Strand, he's not completely convinced that he wants to get rid of these people. Even though he knows Daniel will kill him, Strand is still not there. That's not who he is. He's a con man. He's not a killer. And when Daniel and Lola leave, we see that in Strand's hand as it's shaking, because this is not a situation that he's in. He's not in control. This is not where Strand is in control. Strand's in control when he's manipulating. So I was really scared at that point there, because I really thought this might be the end for Daniel. And on the other end, we see that there's another death that we were not expecting. I was kind of shocked to see Troy killed by Madison. I was. But it also made a lot of sense to me. I didn't see that coming, but remember, the reason Madison was so gung-ho about the farm, the reason she was having the conversation with Strand at the beginning of this episode was because Madison was explaining to Strand that it's all about my children. The farm, she basically made it work because she felt Travis, she tricked herself into believing Travis died for this farm. We need to hold this farm. This farm is all about the children now. I need to hold on to this farm because Travis died for it. If really, it was Taka Walker who killed Travis, because that sniper shot came from them, and they hit the helicopter, and Travis was sniped. Remember, he fell out the helicopter, and Alicia was in the helicopter with him. But oddly enough, Madison didn't see it that way. Madison saw that Travis died for the farm. Madison didn't know that Troy did this. No one knew that Troy did this. No one knew that he was the one who led the herd. Daniel put it together with his Dark Knight mind, right? He was like the Dark Knight in that moment. But no one put it together. And when Madison found out that Troy cost her the farm, cost her the safety of her children, because her children left because the farm was the last place that they were all together. That was it. She lost Travis, she lost the farm, she lost her children. There was no point keeping Troy alive at that point. So when she hits him with that claw hammer, that was it. That was the last straw. And if you remember, she told Taka, or Walker, that basically Walker was saying, what about the other brother? Can we control him? Not talking about Jake, talking about Troy. And Madison said, don't worry, I'll handle that. So Madison was always prepared to take Troy out. And she always kept him at arm's length. Like, she knew he was a psychopath, but a psychopath she could use. And I don't think Nick ever really understood that about his mother, that Nick thought his mother was in danger, so he had to get close to Troy. Remember that. He got close to Troy to protect his mother, because he thought his mother was being dangerously uncareful around Troy. Because remember, we met Troy as he was killing people, literally shooting them, trying to find out how long it takes for them to turn. So Troy's always been a psychopath. Nobody's going to shed any tears. Troy killed everybody on the farm, his own people and the nation. So he killed everybody. So when Madison put that claw hammer to him, it just showed you that Madison, she's calculated. She's very calculated. And at this point, there was no reason to keep him around. You cost them the farm. You cost them Travis. You cost me my children being together. And now I find out that you destroyed it all while I was out trying to get water to feed these people, right? You cost it all to me. You cost it all for me. Claw hammer, claw hammer. So the reasons for her doing it, unquestionable. I understand why the character did it. I was just shocked to see it happen. I didn't think Troy survived all this stuff just to have Madison put him down, but that's what happened. Something else that I spoke about, guys, in the prior episodes was that fact that Walker and Crazy Dog just left. You saw that in this episode. They just left. They're like, we're going to head north. We're going to find our people. We heard some of our people might still be alive, and they left. And I had mentioned that without the farm, there was really no reason for those characters to stick around. Remember that? I was saying that they might die in this episode because there's nothing really holding them down, weighing them down to the plot anymore. But it was actually Troy, who I didn't see happening because he was messing with Nick, that actually ended up dying. So that was interesting that those two characters, Crazy Dog and Taka, actually left unscathed. Even though Daniel was in his crazy mode, Daniel let him go. And it was actually Troy who ended up dying. And again, Troy was done. His character was done. The farm was done. There was really no reason to keep Troy around besides the fact that he had this kinship, his kinship that he had with Madison's son. So that was the only reason to keep Troy around, was to keep, because Nick and him had that affinity for each other, that brotherhood. So a lot of crazy things happened in this episode. I really enjoyed this episode. I thought this episode definitely was named properly. The name Things Bad Begun definitely explained it, because a lot of things bad begun in this episode and some bad things ended in this episode. As always, guys, this is The Tone Show. If you guys like what I do on this channel, leave me a comment, drop me a like, and as always, consider subscribing. This is The Tone Show, and I'm out.
Remember to like and subscribe for more Tone Show.